Meanwhile, all is not well with Oli's Chinese masters. President Xi Jinping is facing challenges at home. The story begins with two PLA hawks, two Chinese generals who have slammed the Chinese leadership. They've written about their disappointment with Xi Jinping's aggressive foreign policy. They're calling for policy re-evaluation. They've issued a warning against quote-unquote serious mistakes by China. One of these voices is Major General Qiao Liang. He's a retired Air Force Major General, a hawkish voice in China. He's written a book called Unrestricted Warfare. You may have heard about it. A book on war in the modern era. We discussed it on the show in detail. This book had suggestions on how China could become a global superpower, and one of the suggestions was to export a virus, to create a pandemic, something like we've seen in the past few months. It's a sinister strategy, and this man suggested it. Now he's written again. Qiao's latest message to Xi Jinping is this: do not treat the coronavirus pandemic as an opportunity to take back Taiwan by force. He gave an interview this week, and he said that China's ultimate goal is not the reunification of Taiwan, but to achieve the dream of national rejuvenation, so that all 1.4 billion Chinese can have a good life. Could it be achieved by taking Taiwan back? Of course not, he says. What he says next is equally interesting. Something we've discussed before. Can China afford a war with India? We told you that China will not be able to mobilize its troops, that it has too many active fronts, that they've spread themselves too thin. Now, Qiao says the same thing in a different context. I'm quoting again. If Beijing wants to take Taiwan back by force, it will need to mobilize all its resources and power to do this. You shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. It's too costly. Qiao, like I mentioned, is a retired Major General. He knows the PLA's capacity. He knows that the Chinese army will not be able to meet foreign troops if they retaliate militarily to Xi Jinping's aggressiveness. He's also posted a message on WeChat, Chinese social media. He said that a move by the PLA to take Taiwan by force may trigger America to declare a war on Beijing, to challenge China's maritime links in the South China Sea. Sanctions from other Western countries could hit Beijing's economic development. He said all of this. The long and short of it is this. This hawkish Chinese general is telling the leadership to be less aggressive, to not abuse the Wuhan virus pandemic. And then there's Dai Shu. He's a PLA general. He's also one of China's most prominent hawks. He recently wrote an article. It is called 4 Unexpected Things and 10 New Understandings About the United States. It looks like a sermon on American politics. But if you read between the lines, there are hidden messages for Xi Jinping, like this one. He says, the general says, that China must take stock of its relative weakness vis-a-vis the United States. Let me quote from the article. Remember, he says, the 30 billion in tariffs imposed on you will bring an effect of 60 billion, 90 billion or more. This is where imperial America is truly powerful. We must be rational instead of angry and fight wisely. The PLA general claims that China's confrontation with the US has won it no friends. He's right, it hasn't. China is friendless. We've been telling you how countries across the world are uniting against China. Even China's checkbook diplomacy is not buying it any support. And this is exactly what the general is talking about in a more subtle manner, of course. Allow me to quote again. He says, China has provided assistance to so many countries, benefiting them in so many ways. But at this critical moment, none of them has taken any unification action with China. That's how he writes it. Take it with a pinch of salt. China has not benefited any country. China has only debt-trapped most of the world. The point is, China's most prominent hawks know that the country is headed towards a disaster. And they're not discussing this behind closed doors anymore. They're writing about it openly. Look at the statement. Dai writes, not a single country has stood out expressing sympathy and support for China. These are his words. Look at the tone of the statement. The article, of course, was in Mandarin, and we're looking at the most reliable English translation here. But the sense of disappointment in the leadership, the frustration with Xi Jinping's policies, all of these are not lost in translation. Where does this leave the Chinese president? What's in store for Xi Jinping? What if these Chinese hawks decide to put their words into action? Remember, Qiao Liang is a professor at the PLA National Defense University. He's in a position to shape the opinion of the army. There's a big question mark hanging on Xi Jinping's political policies, not to mention his foreign policy.